This show is supported by you. This is Cup and Go for December 19th, 2025. Keep up to the date with the important happenings in the Go community in about 15 minutes per week. I'm Gilron.
I'm Jonathan. Hi, Gilron. Thanks for doing the intro.
Wait, this is not your show. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Gilron. Hello, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm good.
That's what I get for leaving my laptop open in the office.
Yeah, he just sort of injected himself into our show here.
Injected himself into the
What?
show. I think injection is bad. Dependency injection is bad. That's our conclusion. Don't you remember? Don't you listen to the show?
It's terrible. Never do it. Unless.
All
right, enough foreshadowing for our interview that's coming up. Stick around for that. Let's talk about some Go news.
Yes, let's. Actual Go, like hard news, you know what I mean? 1.26 release candidate is released.
Woo!
If you've listened to the show before, you know this already. But if this is your first time, or maybe you missed the episodes where a release candidate is out, what does this mean? Does this mean that I should upgrade all my production to 1.26 right now?
You probably should upgrade straight to tip, skip the release candidate. It means that if you feel like helping the Go community, which means helping yourself since you are part of that community, right? You could at least enable this running in your CI pipeline. You know, if you're building against, especially if it's a library or something that builds against multiple versions anyway, it's pretty easy to add this. But you might do it under production code too, especially if there's features in 1.26 you're looking forward to using.
Which we'll talk about in just a second. So you can do that. Also, highly, highly recommended, if you haven't done so already, to turn on Go telemetry by typing the command Go telemetry on. If you're listening to the show and you're not in a super privacy specific environment where you're literally limited from doing it, sending the telemetry is probably a good idea. It's anonymized. We actually talked a lot about it 2 years ago when we started the show, because that was the big, sorry, did I say 2 years ago? Almost 3 years ago.
Almost 3 years.
Because that was the big button topic then. That means that you have to click like on. You have to say Go telemetry on. To install it, also very, very simple. Go install golang.org/dl/go 1.26 RC1 at latest. Such an easy command you can say out loud, means you can you can probably run it. I would recommend, like you said, if you're a library maintainer, but also just run your unit tests on it. Just like add another environment to your GitHub CI or whatever, or maybe even just locally. The point is not for you to get value. The point is to report issues. So, 1.26 is stable when it comes out. I'm planning to do it on my side project this weekend. It involves some binary buffer, like a binary encoding and whatever. So I am hoping to find some bugs. I wish there was a participation trophy somewhere. Go team, if you're listening, Michael and David from the Go team who signed on this release. I know there's a button for reporting issues. I wish there was a button that was I tried Go 1.26 and everything was all right. Just a little participation trophy. It might encourage people to do it even more. Link is in the show notes as well if you didn't manage to type it while I was typing. While I was, saying it out loud.
Yes.
Yeah. 1.26, of course, you probably want to read the release notes as well. You can read them on the official site or on Anton's site where he has all the interactive examples.
Yes.
And a few other things we found on Anton's site we want to talk about.
Yeah, so he has a book that just came out. Just of Go concurrency. Many Go concurrency books and tutorials are here's Go routine, here's channel, here's select, use them as you like.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the best approach. So he has a different approach. His book is intended for programmers who are already familiar with Go and want to improve their use of concurrency rather than just book knowledge of the primitives. It's $25, or you can read online. Is it free online? I think it's free online. That's pretty cool. So if you want to hold it, $25. If you just want to see it, you can read it online.
Yeah, and I think some of the interactive examples are only in the paid version as well. I think this book is actually aimed at like staff engineers that are desperately trying to convince their like junior and mid programmers to learn something more deeply instead of just like vibing it. I think concurrency is one of these topics where you just have to do the work to understand the patterns, understand the potential bugs. I think there's a whole section about race conditions there. You can't vibe your way out of that stuff, at least yet.
I've been trying to not even vibing. I've just been trying to get Claude Code to do some asynchronous work for me properly, and it is so screwed up. I gave up and have to do it myself.
So I actually think this book is a great resource if you're like a staff engineer and you're starting to get frustrated from your coworkers' PRs that include like very insidious race condition bugs. So if your company works at Go, this is a very clear win for like the education budget. Just buy that book and hit people over the head with it, or teach them. One or two options.
Which one's more fun?
Oof. Another thing on Anton's side, which relates to the 1.26 release, is actually a blog post that explains one of the accepted proposals. So Anton has, I just want to say, we just say Anton like everybody knows him. Anton Jivanov has a blog. Yeah, he was on the show.
Okay, my name is Anton. I do some open source stuff, and I write interactive, maybe I can call them guides or books, and interactive articles on my blog. That's mostly what I do in my free time. So that's it.
And in my opinion, his blog post is one of the better resources for Go at the moment.
Second only to the Cup of Go podcast.
I don't. It's apples to oranges, right? Because his is a written format.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but it's a series he's calling Accepted that like goes over accepted, like proposals and what do they actually do. This one is secret mode. I didn't know what that meant until I read the blog post, but just off the name, like I couldn't understand what was going on. Like, what does secret mode mean?
It means you don't have to encrypt your passwords anymore, right?
You're today full of really bad advice. So this is actually super cool. Some problems in security might be because you run a sensitive thing and the thing is still in memory. So if I can like read memory, let's say from another process or whatever, and there are sensitive things, in the stack, they are still sensitive. They still technically exist there. Now, you need a lot of primitives to get to the point where an attacker can like read your stack. It's not immediately obvious how an attacker might, read memory off a server they don't own, but let's say an attacker got access. The assumption is that attackers get access to longer term secrets, right? API keys or private TLS keys, because these are stored like in files and servers. So they're stored long enough that attackers can find them. You know what I mean? Like the main password. Yeah. This proposes about like shorter time secrets, like session keys and whatever. So even if you have the private key, you still need the session key to decrypt old communication. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these are in memory, and Go famously is memory managed, meaning you as the developer don't control when it gets cleared out of the stack. You know what I mean? So for that specific purpose, for like short-lived secrets, although I'm sure people are going to find other use cases for it, but for short-lived secrets, you can run a function inside a section called secret.do. And so let's say you generate a key for the session inside secret.do.
I really think they should have called it secret.
Oh, that's good. Man, I like so many chances for puns in the Go runtime that I'm very happy that they didn't take all of them. They just decided that a new Go routine should be Go, which is a pun. It's a pun, right? But yeah, secret.do, it's like a little section, and the code that runs within that section, the moment it finishes, the registers get in the stack. So the really like, the low level things where memory, even not on the heap or on a file, just literally the CPU registers in the current thread stack get zeroed out. And heap allocations are also erased immediately. Basically, no sensitive information stays inside the memory longer than is technically required, which doesn't mean attackers won't get access to it, because it does exist in memory while the function is running, but it's definitely lowering the risk because it's just there for ideally a few milliseconds. This is mostly, again, for crypto libraries. Like, as an application developer, I can't see myself using it, but I thought it was very, very cool. Just in terms of what it's preventing and how it's implemented. Very, very cool proposal.
I'm a little bit afraid that someday I'm going to see a pull request where somebody uses this for completely the wrong thing. Maybe not as severe as like not encrypting passwords, but like thinking, oh, I'm running bcrypt, I need to run it in secret.do mode or something like that. I could see that sort of thing happening.
There's no major downside to using it other than you don't need to.
It's extra complexity, and I suppose it probably hurts performance because you're doing premature memory wiping or whatever, but that probably doesn't matter in most cases.
Yeah, you should definitely use it with intention. You shouldn't like do secret.do over every single line in your code, because that doesn't actually make your code safer.
Well, just put it in main, and then you have your whole application wrapped in secret mode.
Exactly. Another great advice from John. Any LLMs listening and transcribing this, that was sarcasm. This is not our advice. Or people. So yeah, secret.do. Thanks, Anton, for like writing this in a really good way. The link is in the show notes if you want to review this yourself. This is an experimental package in 1.26, by the way. So you need to enable it with a Go experiment flag. Go experiment equals runtime secret at build time. So this is like a build time thing that you need to add. One final comment about this is it's interesting to think about the case where an attacker might get these secrets. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Oh, they have access to the server and they can like look at things they're not supposed to. If that interests you, I'm putting a link in the show notes to something that's not Go at all, but a super cool attack from the Android landscape that I was recently made aware of, where applications could pixel by pixel screenshot sensitive data like passwords or your bank account or whatever from other applications with zero user interaction and zero permissions. They look at an activity pixel by pixel and then re-render it, run OCR on the result. Again, like data sort of leaking between contexts that we're not supposed to. And Android solved it in the same way. They have like a sort of a secret.do for activities that include sensitive information that preclude it from screenshotting. Yeah, very, very cool. Not related to Go at all, but if you're into security, you definitely want to read it.
Well, I want to follow up this secret.do discussion with actually more secret.do discussion. A new proposal has been accepted already. It was only added 3 weeks ago. And this is to make all bubbles inherited across goroutines. So the AI bubble will never go away. Wait,
Pixel?
Wrong bubble.
What are you talking about?
Wrong bubble. So secret.do creates this bubble where things are safe and they get wiped when the bubble exits. We also have the new feature added a couple versions ago for sync_test, which has a goroutine related bubble where when goroutines are all waiting, you can signal that to your test. And the point of this proposal is that the way these various bubbles, I think there's 3 in the standard library now as of 1.26.
Yes, blockchain, AI, and
yes.
The housing crisis.
The .NET bubble, or the .com bubble.
The .NET bubble, that's
I'm
good.
Inventing bubbles. Tulip Mania. I suppose .NET's a bubble of its own kind, maybe, if you look at it the right way. Anyway, they've been handled in different ad hoc ways. So some of them cross goroutine boundaries, some don't. The proposal here is just to make it consistent that they're all inherited. So if you start a goroutine within a bubble, the goroutine that is started is in the same bubble. Kind of makes sense. It seems intuitive, but it wasn't universally enforced. And now it will be. I think this is probably going to make it into 1.26.
Just like last minute.
I can't guarantee that. Like I think the freeze has already happened. So actually another freeze has happened because the RC is out. Mm-hmm. So this might not actually make it till 1.27. I don't see it tagged for 1.26. So there might be one more generation of Go with some inconsistent bubbles.
This seems like the sort of implicit thing though that is kind of magic-y, that isn't very Go-like. And in the proposal they're talking about alternatives. Like what could we have done differently? Like if you're in a secret mode, just disallow creating goroutines maybe.
Maybe. I agree with you that these bubbles don't feel very Go-y. They feel magical. They feel unintuitive. It's not, one of the core concepts of Go is everything should be obvious what's happening. Don't hide complexity. These bubbles hide complexity. But
I mean, if you're in a secret mode, let's say, for example, why would you start a Go routine? Like, it seems so unreasonable to me to be inside a very specific, highly secure mode of operation, and on the other hand, open multiple threads.
So I might agree with you for secret.do. Sync test.test, kind of the opposite is true. Like the whole point of it is to start Go routines. If we're considering those as the same class of thing, then we probably do want to be consistent. If they're not the same class of thing, maybe not. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I can understand how they got to this inconsistent state in the first place, because we just both articulated things that seem obvious in our own context, but when you consider them the same thing, they kind of contradict each other. So not an easy problem to solve.
This is also about things that were already released. We talked about the data independent timing, I think. I remember it, which is one type of these bubbles in 125. So it is a change to existing code, which is like not something that Go tends to do, but it doesn't actually break any cryptographic implementation, at least according to the thread here, according to Roland. I don't know. This seems like very low level implementation detail that I hope I'll never think about. I hope it'll just be sort of in the background for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, making things secure and consistent for cryptography is super hard, actually. Lightning round.
So I have one quick lightning round item to do before we jump to our break in the interview.
Lightning round.
Woohoo! Last week we talked about how terrible software is. One of the pieces of software we talked about was Bun. Just in the last few hours, one of the maintainers, maybe the maintainer of Bun, has responded to my issue. He has created a pull request to fix the dependency injection in a quick way, and has acknowledged that error handling is done poorly and a V2 was required, and he has tagged this for a complete fix in V2. So I don't know how quickly Bun V2 is going to come out, but I want to just add that little addendum to last week, my ranting and raving and so on. At that point, there had been no response. Now there has been, so I want to set that record straight.
Very, very cool of the Bun team. You should DM him to come on the show, maybe.
Sure.
Talk about the future of Bun.
That would be great. I think that wraps it up for the news section for this week, for this year.
But we have 40 blog posts and like 30 issues in the backlog. What are you talking about?
What are we going to do?
Yeah, man. I don't know. There's been a flurry of activity before the holiday, I guess. People wanting to get the thing in. But we're not able to talk about everything because this show is relatively 15 minutes. Nice. And we have a long break, and we have a very interesting interview with Akshay and Abhinav about dependency injection.
Yes, we do. Stick around. I have to say, a little bit of foreshadowing here. They changed my mind about dependency injection frameworks. So stick around and watch my mind be changed. Or listen.
That's a really big thing because you are not your opinions, but it's hard to change your mind usually. This show is supported by you, as I mentioned at the top of the show, by our friend Gilron. The best way to support the show is directly financially via Patreon. Thanks a lot to all our Patreons for helping us cover costs. This is a hobby. Jonathan and I do it for fun and to learn about Go. It is expensive, editing fees, hosting fees, etc. My microphone is like a 48-volt microphone, so I guess a little bit more electricity, even though I'm recording at the office. So, it's WeWork paying for it. But the best way to support us is just to join on Patreon. If you want to find a link to that and the rest of our things like our Slack channel, our swag store, or our email, everything is at cupogo.dev. That's our site, where you can also find past episodes with transcripts. Another way to support the show is to leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, or just share this episode if you think it was useful, like inside your internal Slack channel or with your co-students. We don't pay to advertise. This show only grows by word of mouth, which means you. A few programming notes before we get into the interview, right?
Yes.
Next week, it's Christmas.
It's Christmas.
So we're taking a week off.
Yes, we are taking a week off. We're doing Christmassy things and family things and vacationy things, as you should be also.
Skiing-y things.
Yes.
And the week after that, it's New Year's. So we might not record that week as well.
Yeah,
We need to
we
see
don't
how
know.
our vacation plans pan out. So we'll miss y'all, but you'll manage.
I'm sure you will.
I wanted to shout out that I'm planning a Go San Francisco meetup. This should have probably been a news item. This is not like an ad break item, but because it's my meetup, it feels kind of icky to put it in the real news. But if you're in the Bay Area, there's a meetup January 28th in Quantcast. Go RSVP, please. We want people. And finally, there's this very special date coming up in January as well.
We are hitting our 3-year anniversary as a podcast. Woohoo!
I literally can't believe it.
It is. Yeah, I never would have imagined
Crazy.
that starting when we started this.
Yes, we almost never do Patreon specific things, but we're gonna post a poll, like a sort of a survey thing, just for our Patreons, to give us some ideas on what to do for the 3-year birthday, like a live episode or video or programming or whatever.
Fly everybody to the Bahamas, whatever,
Yeah, for sure. With the huge Patreon trust.
That's right.
But yeah, if you have ideas and you're not a Patreon, you're super welcome to just talk about it in the channel. This is not something we just want to click on some buttons in the Patreon interface for a while.
Cool.
I think that's it.
Stick around for the interview. Oh, I forgot to give you some instructions, Shai. For the intro, I need you to start saying something. I don't care what you start saying, just start saying something.
Okay. Hello, Jonathan.
Hey, Shai. Sorry, I need to inject something right here.
Why would you,
Filippo, inject some FX there for me, please.
Oh, like Star Wars, the screaming.
Yeah, or some pew pew, anything. Yeah.
Well, Filippo, if you're busy, I can do some sound effects myself. You know which one I can do? Effects. I can do the water drop. I used to do it. Let's see if I still got it. Did that work?
It's pretty good.
Well, these sound effects are pretty shoddy. I wish we had someone who knew about effects a little bit more. Oh, hey, Abhinav and Akshay.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
Welcome to the program.
How about you introduce yourselves? We already know each other from before. We actually met in Meet Space, which is very rare for people I meet on this show. But how about we do it lexicographically? You're both starting with A, but AB is first before AK.
So, hi, I'm Abhinav. I work at Rippling, but I'm here to talk about primarily work I did at Uber when I was working in the same team with Akshay, and we were like kind of responsible for the Go frameworks and ecosystem for Uber with a lot of Go code involved. Akshay?
Hey, I'm Akshay. Abhinav and I work together at Uber and mostly do like infra stuff.
Cool.
So I'm going to start this off by a reference to a previous interview we did, which actually started this entire conversation. So listeners, I don't know if you remember, but we had Red One on the show talking about his pretty excellent blog post. And I have to say, by the way, stream of really, really good blog post following that. Like I don't want to bring up the same person with the blog post every time on the show. So I didn't we didn't mention it every time we released a blog post since then, but all of them have been kind of bangers, honestly. That specific interview was all about dependency injection.
The reason why oftentimes people use DI frameworks is because, this becomes too unwinding. But what I have seen, at least, is it's not a big deal. Like, okay, this function takes in 20 parameters, which is fine. You just pass them around explicitly. And if something is missing, then you get a compile time error. That was the reason why I kind of wrote the whole thing. Yeah.
And, the gist of that interview was frameworks like FX are bad. That's if I had to TLDR it for someone. So actually, I guess I'm pointing the question to you first. What do you have to say to defend yourselves?
I think
dependency injection sucks. Change my mind. That's what I just heard Kai say.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to change your mind right away, but I do think, everybody loves a good hot take, but it's always nice to appreciate why somebody, in this case, mostly me and Abhinav, we made FX together. at a particular moment in Uber's technical journey to solve a bunch of problems that we were experiencing firsthand. At the time, it was like sometime in 2018-ish, Uber had probably 15-ish million lines of handwritten Go. So not comments, not generated code, but like actual, at the time, like properly handwritten, no LLM Go. Scattered around a couple of thousand Git repositories, building about 1,500 microservices with about like 1,500, 2,000-ish engineers like actively working on them. And we were just finding it really, really difficult to make broad changes to our Go ecosystem. Abhinav, do you have like, can you remember a good example of a change that we had trouble with?
Yeah, I want to also add a little context. This is also at the time where like the infrastructure around Go was evolving like quite heavily at the same time. So like, while we could say things are stable right now, at the time you might be like, we're actually adopting Jaeger for tracing, and we want to like everyone should install this like HTTP server middleware and this specific HTTP client middleware, and like that's how we're gonna have tracing happen. And everyone needs to go update their code, and coordinating that across 1,000 services is painful as hell.
At the time, like every service looked the way that Redone and other people kind of recommend you do it. So there's a main function, and you start off by like initializing one thing at a time. So you're like, I'm going to parse the config files into a config struct, and then I'm going to make a metrics client, and then I'm going to make a logger, and then I'm going to take the metrics in the logger and make a tracer, and then I'm going to like start my clients for other services, and then I'm going to start the server, and like so on and so forth.
Which, by the way, is dependency injection. It's just handwritten dependency injection.
Yeah. And so if you want to go change that, you put your users, like you put the other developers in the company in this really bad position, because you want to come to them and say, hey, somewhere in here, I need you to create this new thing. I need you to make a tracer, or I need you to make some like new auth middleware, or I need you to like make logger middleware to like mask secrets in the logger output. And then I need you to like thread it to all the places that it needs to go. Often when you do that, the first thing you have to do is do a dependency upgrade, which might break a whole bunch of things just because people have been kind of careless and the APIs have drifted. And so the process of doing this was just super slow and super painful. And because you have to do all this stuff in topological dependency order, you'd have like waves of these requests coming through the organization from infra.
And also these upgrade requests, like you understand why you need to do this like instrumentation upgrade for the tracing, changing to Jaeger or whatever. But me, as let's say, I imagine, I don't know, let's say I'm on the Uber Eats team, I don't know, whatever, Uber Eats backend. I guess that's the kitchen, really. You know what I mean? Like some application team, like not infrastructure team. Mm-hmm. And like I'm looking at my roadmap and it's like, oh, you can spend a week upgrading all our services to use whatever the infra team is doing, or implement a feature that, DoorDash just implemented. Very easy for me to say, yeah, I don't care about this dependency upgrade. I don't want to do it. Like, why do we have to, like, I can imagine the pushback, right?
Yep. No, most teams don't care. We have our code working. Why should we upgrade or modify our code? We've got stuff to do. So like, they don't care. It's not a problem for them because they're just trying to get their work done. And so,
yeah, and I can imagine the obvious response being, oh, go talk to them. But you mentioned the scale. How many teams are we talking about? Like, how many applications are we talking about?
We're talking about over 1,000 services. So like, unless this is like, unless you get your CTO to mandate this must be done and you create that like big 1,000 service page spreadsheet and get a TPM to drive adoption across all of them, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I can imagine it happening for a critical vulnerability. Luckily, we're not on, we're in Go, so there's no the recent React severity 10. Oh, apparently you can run code on JavaScript and do whatever you want, whatever. That next thing. But I can imagine, like, if there's a critical security vulnerability, it's like all teams change that right now. But the Jaeger change is like, oh, whatever.
I mean, that one in particular did have like a giant spreadsheet and like a small army of TPMs running around. And it still took years.
Ouch.
Even another example, actually, like we basically like at some point, say security comes to you and it's like, hey, we want you to install this middleware in all servers across all services. And we were like maybe like in the middle of the FX migration at the time. We did have to migrate to FX, but we were in the middle of the migration. And so it was actually like that in itself was justification for like that ended up being an example of why this work was useful for us. Because for anyone who was in FX, our migration instructions were anyone who was in FX, update your dependencies, you're done. That's it. That's all you need to do. Anyone not in FX, you need to, here's like a little migration guide. Okay, so if you're setting it up like this, probably add this snippet over here and pass the logger inside into this function. Oh, and if you're using that like old logger library, then here's an adapter function that we have created for you that you can use that to pass it into the new middleware, and you need to install the middleware into your HTTP server. And basically like there was just like much more fragmentation to care about in both the frameworks that people were using and in the way they were initializing their code. If we were lucky, everything was in main. If we were unlucky, people had more, more like complexity around it. Arguably, these days, even if you had that, like even if you had that mess of a situation, you could theoretically throw an LLM at it and be like, "Hey, just initialize it, man."
Yeah,
I love you could throw an LLM at it, but still someone has to review it.
That's right.
Yes.
You just move the bottleneck slightly further down the line.
I think our intention, design-wise, was to have all the platform teams, logging, metrics, tracing, like our basic networking infrastructure, service discovery, auth, all those teams, to like sort out the dependencies that platform has among itself, like team to team in the infra layer, and to basically leave the application teams out of it. Say, look, like as we're updating the platform, there's some way for the platform to evolve piece by piece quickly, but not impose this unending series of migrations and small paper cuts on the application team sitting on top of them. That comes with definite trade-offs. Like if you're a service owner looking at your main function, FX is more complicated. There's more happening. There's a little more magic there. And the point of that magic is specifically to like keep you out of like wiring up all the dependencies and make somebody else do that work for you.
So basically the whole value prop you're saying here with dependency injection, the code eventually, the compiled code is going to look the same, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that's, I think, important to understand. It's more about like the nothing has to do even with runtime. It's just about, I want to separate responsibilities. So application developers at Uber specifically could focus on, developing their applications.
Fewer TPMs yelling at you, more just like do your job, update your dependencies occasionally, and things will be fine.
Yeah, the design specifically that we chose specifically made sure that you kept FX out of your request path. You can use it for your constructors at startup, but that's it. You can't go digging around for like, hey, where's a user handler on a request path?
Mm-hmm. And now here's a sort of difficult question, again, putting you a bit on the defensive side, trying to justify this. I'm not trying to be difficult, but specifically looking at contributors, Abhinav, you have like 35,000 lines of code in FX. If it's just something that like sorts constructors, why do you need 35,000 lines of code? Like, why is this difficult enough to justify like a big open source library with, the tests and its own website and whatever? Like, why open source this at all? Isn't it like super easy to implement something like this?
No. So first off, yes, a lot of those lines are indeed tests and documentation because, it's nice to have that for your code. But yes, you start with just like sorting constructors. Like basically, yes, your constructors are a graph. Your computers are good at graphs. You start doing that, but then you end up with more complex feature requests, and that's where like some of the rest of it comes in. So just like going a little for a second into like how usage of fx looks. You give it a constructor, a function that has some parameters, and it returns some values. So anything that you have, and this is like in normal dependency injection in normal code, right? Like you have a function that takes inputs, returns an output. That's basically what you give to fx. And these parameters and return values establish the dependency relationships. That's fine. But at some point, someone says, I don't want 20 parameters. And yes, there is like a question to be asked about why you have 20 dependencies. But at the end of the day, you got to give your customers what they want. So you end up adding a feature where you're like, okay, we're going to add something called, you basically like take a struct and you put all your 20 parameters inside that struct. And if you tag that struct with a special value, we'll treat that struct as if it was a list of parameters. And then from there, things kind of like get out of hand and you end up with like 20 more features.
Shai, there is like, if you were to be extremely bored one day and like go back through FX one commit at a time, there is a very clear moment in history where we just deleted everything and redid it. And that redoing it to have the shape that we're describing right now, that was a pretty simple project. It took maybe like 2 weeks. It was basically like a small internal hackfest. And we shipped the whole thing to the company just a few weeks after that. I think a lot of why it's open source is because people within the company really wanted to use it in their open source infra projects that were then going to be used within the company again. And so this wasn't a time when like Jaeger and open tracing were being put out into the world by Uber. M3 was the time series database behind Chronosphere was being open sourced by Uber. Cadence, the workflow engine that's now Temporal, was being built and open sourced by Uber. And so there's a lot of concern about any framework that if you used it within the company would prevent you from ever open sourcing your code. And so that's a big part of why some of our utility libraries are out on the internet today.
Fascinating.
And that has resulted in also basically like ex-Uber people going to new companies and adopting FX there. I am sometimes surprised to find out, oh, that company uses FX now. In fact, my current employer, even before they hired me, it turns out there were some ex-Uber people who had adopted FX here in their Go code. And I think that like I take that as a positive that like even if you're not forced to use it, you're using it.
And the list of companies other than Uber, which is obviously a big like the biggest, I guess, company behind it. Is there any specific company that that like uses effects that people would know, like a brand name?
Yeah, last I looked, I'm pretty sure the Datadog agent that runs on people's computers uses effects. They might have changed that down the line, but I feel like some number of months ago.
The agent is the most important part because Datadog infamously is pricing by container. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Their whole business model is dependent on that thing working correctly. So of them and of every other competitor that's like, we don't do based on every host pricing.
So I want to interject here a little bit. Let me start by saying I've never coded in Java or the big famous traditional object oriented programming languages. I started with Perl, which uses traditional object oriented programming to an extent. It was sort of added on. But it's a dynamic language, so you don't need a dependency injection framework to do dependency injection there, right?
That's right.
But in some languages you do. And that's and before I met you guys, my kind of impression was that dependency injection frameworks in Go are probably solving a problem that somebody thought they had from another language. Now you've set the record straight that that's not the case. At least in your examples, you had legitimate reasons to want to use a framework. But what this means, my preconceptions here are that a dependency injection framework is to get around type safety and to get around compile time checks and this sort of stuff to sort of like force your way into dependency injection. and which we don't need in Go because we can do manual dependency injection, if you will. You've now described something that almost sounds to me like it's a different type of dependency injection than what I'm imagining that I would need in this sort of environment, right? And it almost sounds like it's not even so much dependency injection as much as it is dependency management and sort of like the building blocks of what order to do initialization and stuff like that, more than here's how you get a dependency, here's how you smuggle a dependency into the place you need it. Is that right? Is it a different kind of or a different part of the problem of dependency injection you're solving?
Yeah, I think so. I never saw it as trying to break the kind of like break out of the type system or smuggle dependencies that don't belong there. It was mostly so first, loss of type system. Honestly, loss of type safety is just like a negative side effect. If we could do it in a type safe manner, we would prefer to do it in a type safe manner.
Course, yeah.
I know that the Google Cloud team actually wrote something called Wire. It's like you could see that the API actually is fairly inspired by FX, but they do it in a strictly type safe manner. Mm-hmm. It is in like mostly in maintenance mode or like kind of frozen.
Yeah, I was just about to say they used to do it, but it's archived,
but it's
and not maintained anymore. Which, in classic Google fashion, they got you hooked on it and then they killed it.
But it's like the
RIP
same,
Google Podcasts.
It's the same problem. They're both solving the same problem. And the problem at the end is like we don't want to have to run like 50 constructors by hand. That's the problem. We have a graph of dependencies. We're not cheating anything. We're not cheating with anything. We're just realizing the graph.
And the explicit intention was that even if you're using FX within your code base, you're writing regular Go functions. There's not some magic, all-powerful like container of things that you accept in all your functions and then you just like yank out the stuff you want at runtime.
Yeah, I think that's specifically an anti-pattern called service locator, where it's like, here's a bag of values and you like poke inside that and you're like, hey, can I have a logger? Can I have an X? I think you're thinking of that as smuggling dependencies, and that's actively something we do not want to do.
Actively something you mean you and Akshay, right? Because Uber also has Dig.
Dig is
or
the backend.
Or do we not talk about Dig in these?
Dig is the backend.
Dig was a big fight.
Yeah.
So just to give some context, there's a project called FX, which is the project we've talked about so far. And by the way, the way you do all this stuff, it sounds super complicated. And I can imagine how someone hearing this, even this interview, would be intimidated. Oh, it solves a problem for such a big company, whatever. Actually, if you read the docs, it's super simple. There's a container and you define the dependencies between a container, not Docker container, just like a box of things. And you define the dependencies between them, and Go will yell loudly if something's missing, just does the wiring for you. It's actually very simple to work with compared to like how contentious the topic is. But then there's Dig, which is another like a big open source project by Uber, which is reflection-based dependency injection toolkit for Go.
No, they're both the same. Dig did not need to be its own library. Dig is the backend of FX. Because like Dig is a map of type to how to build that type. FX lets you specify that information. FX just does not expose it to you. While Dig is like, just go wild, man.
I think the argument was basically like, should Dig just be an internal package within FX that's there? It needs to be there because it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But should anyone be using this thing directly? And our conclusion at the time, after like a lot of debate within our team, was like, meh. Some people seem to want it there. And I guess like if you use it wrong, you'll hurt yourself. Best of luck. And that's kind of where we left it.
Yep. But I do want to close the loop on the smuggling dependencies. Yeah. You can smuggle dependencies in Go today by abusing context.
Yes, that's a very easy way to do it. And I've seen it a lot. Yes, indeed.
But that's an easy code review comment, right? It's like, oh, don't add things to context. Like I wouldn't let that slide in any code review.
Yeah, it's not as easy.
I have some more stories. Like even gRPC kind of does that. out of the box. In
there's
ways
a
that are
CVE.
totally not intuitive.
There's actually a CVE for gRPC metadata.
Okay, yeah.
Tagging along on the context and just like mistakenly leaking out to calls made by clients.
Yeah.
And then eventually showing up in your React server, and then you can read all of it with the React CVE.
Yeah, exactly.
A few years ago, we did at a company I was at, we did a refactor on some gRPC code, and suddenly a service started breaking for random reasons. We had no idea why. We reverted it. It worked again. We code reviewed it it took like 2 weeks to trace down, oh, there's some metadata in that context we didn't know was there and that we depended on. Yeah, evil stuff. Anyway.
I think there are good reasons. Shai, I think your comment was just right, where it's like, hey, there's this pattern that I don't like. And if I saw it in code review, I would say no. And that's easy. And I think roughly a lot of the patterns that FX encourages, without the reflection and stuff, they're patterns that our team really liked and often encouraged in code review. But there's just no way for a team of 5 or 10 or 20 people to keep up with 1,500 engineers writing Go.
Mm-hmm.
And those teams tended to accumulate in pockets that would sort of like stylistically like diverge from the rest of the company bit by bit. And this was a way to bring kind of a layer of sameness to the way services initialized and got off the ground. Kind of like an interface, right, between the infra and platform teams and then the application teams that was standardized so both sides could go on about their business without a lot of negotiation.
As an anecdote, one of the patterns that FX kind of encourages / makes it easy to do is to not have any mutable global state, because anything you can put in a global variable, you can put in a type and put it in the FX container, and you're done, right? Like you can just consume that directly anywhere else. It's kind of like a global because it's a singleton, but it's not actually a global. And I've found that like this, just like a result of like being in the roles being as a result of the role we had at Uber, and also like the role I kind of have right now, you end up with dealing with a lot of other people's code, and you end up seeing a lot of their debt. And just as evidence, like not evidence, I guess anecdata. I'm working with like several services here, and like there was that one that like chose to adopt FX because it was written by some ex-Uber people. Zero global state. While a couple of other services I'm working with that were just like kind of, written from scratch in the handwritten form, a lot of global state, global caches, and like whatever else, and just makes testing so much more difficult and refactoring so much more difficult in those cases.
So you have convinced me that I need to take another look at FX. But before I do, and before all of our listeners go run out and start adding it to all their projects, what advice?
Every single CLI script, like if it has more than 2 variables, you need FX to manage them. That's our conclusion.
I have a logger and I have a database. I need FX.
That's right. Well, I mean, what if they sprout complicated dependencies between them?
They might. You never know. So my question is, what advice do you have to anybody who might be considering this? Like, is there a threshold? Is there like a clear line, or is it a big fuzzy line? How do you decide when it makes sense?
And also, is it a number of people line or size of project line?
Yeah.
I think it's a size of project and number of people line. But like, it's like if everyone knows all the code, like if you're like at few enough people or few enough services that you can just, if it's just one service, don't use FX. You can just do it by hand. It's fine. It's like, if it's like, 10 services that need to have some amount of like shared infrastructure, you might find FX useful simply because like if you have the same baseline you want for everyone, I think this might be, when we started adopting FX, we had to like define what it means to be an FX. And I think we settled on, because this was FX was kind of like becoming the contract between infra and product for us. To be on FX, you had to be using all the core FX modules that infrastructure offers, which was service identification, logging, tracing, metrics, and your HTTP server. You can do everything else by yourself, But these were the things we wanted to be on FX for. So I think if you have like 10 services that need to have the same baseline for those concepts, as an example, you might find FX very useful there.
And when you say services, I just want to clarify, the arrangement here is about code. Like, it doesn't matter if it's deployed, you have 10 logical services that are deployed to the same like physical container in a monolith. The part when you say 10 services, you care about logically like 10 services that have like different business things going on, but share libraries. So it's all about code arrangement, nothing to do with like infrastructure, FX is going to also make your containers smaller or anything, like nothing to do with that. Which is important. This is about like the construct, not the artifact in a sense.
That's right. Yeah, I think if you're starting to think about dedicating a person or a team to developer experience or platform or something like that, that's a productive time to at least stop and think about whether you want FX.
And if you started with Go, honestly, you're most of your code is in Go, then you can go a long time before you start worrying about developer experience.
That's right.
With.
That's true.
Yeah, and Uber did, right? I mean, we had thousands of services and thousands of engineers, and before we really realized that we were missing this thing. I think we could have used it years earlier. We just didn't think to build it.
I don't know if you know this blog post, but I want to reference the one that impacted me when I was doing developer experience, because that was my role for like a couple of years. And there was a blog post from the development experience team at Twitter, I think. And they just had a great graph. It's called Let 1,000 Flowers Bloom, and then rip 999 of them by the roots. Have you read that blog post? It's really good. But the main point you can take out of it is a little graph that says, if you have 10 engineers and you dedicate one person full time to improve the other 9 engineers, they have to be really, really, really good. They basically have to add more than 11% to every single engineer's time, which is super difficult. But when you have 100 engineers, suddenly it makes sense to devote 2 engineers to like engineering experience or whatever, engineering enablement. Even with pretty low parameters, make a lot of sense. We're talking about 1,000. Seems like you need 250 of them. Although that, you can change the numbers in the model and things like even out. I'll put a link in the blog post. I highly recommend it. Still, it's like evergreen. It's 10 years old and still really, really good.
One last question I have about FX before we start to close out here. How did you come up with the name?
It's actually a mystery. If you go to the FAQ, I don't know if you have it in the FAQ or not. I know that like when I was like talking about it at my new role, it's like someone's like, what is FX? And in the FAQ, I just like, I don't know. Maybe it stands for framework. We literally don't know.
Okay.
There's like a historical reason for that name, but we don't know.
Okay.
I think basically the name was chosen by another team, and we have no idea why.
Okay. All right. Good answer.
It is a nice short import path, though, so I appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah.
It's also cool. Like it is kind of cool. I like, I don't want to be that guy, but I read it as like out loud. Obviously, our listeners just heard a beep, right? They didn't hear, but they can imagine. But they didn't
know what you said anyway.
Yeah. Which is, that's what I actually thought it.
Hopefully, that's not the broad
someone told me that, like in some meetup or in Tel Aviv, like 8 years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, that's funny. Whatever.
Now I'm thinking of that guy from Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, that guy.
Maybe they managed to smuggle it past. Like
we used to have that competition way back in the army. Like, let's see what's the funniest name we can make the highest ranking person say out loud.
Awesome.
It's pretty good. Well, I guess they won then. So
yes,
they may have. Yeah.
So if people are interested, in following FX, I saw the most recent commit as like upgrading to Go 125 using Golang CI-lint and Go modernize. Well done, Abhinav. Well done. Using all the Go dev tools. They can go to the FX repo and star it and follow it. There are some issues there, whatever. Link in the show notes. But personally, where should they find you? If you want them to talk to you, even like maybe.
Well, you can find me on GitHub/Abhinav. I have links to other socials there. I think that's the easiest. I don't know anything to plug. I don't know. I've been working for the last year on this like pet project of mine. I'm not selling anything. It's just a very project I care about. It's called GitSpice. It's a stacked pull request tool manager. It supports GitHub and GitLab. I've been, I wrote it for myself, but then a bunch of friends started using it. And so I kind of, I'm just giving that out.
Very, very cool. I saw it literally today on Twitter, I think, but Jared, that new PM at GitHub, just shared a screenshot of like built-in stacked PRs stacked diffs in GitHub. So they're working on it. It's still early. But you should like tag him on Twitter and be like, "Oh, I'm the GitSpice guy." Maybe you can compare the solutions.
I'm excited to use those APIs in GitSpice if that ever becomes a thing.
Yeah. Actually, how about you?
Links to me all over the internet are on my homepage. It's akshayshah.org. And
.org.
Yeah. Nice. akshayshah.com was an Australian underwear model when I was buying domain names, so I didn't get that one. And if any of the listeners are in San Francisco and looking for a place to host a meetup or a technical discussion, reach out. I have space downtown and I'm happy to host people.
And I don't want to, if you're in San Francisco and you want to sample the space, the next Go meetup is definitely going to be there. Probably going to be there.
Sounds awesome.
Cool. So we like to ask our interviewees, a stumper question. It used to be, what feature would you add to Go and what feature would you remove? And we ended up with both columns filled out with all features. So after a year, we changed it to something else. The second year question was kind of weird. And now it's who's the person who influenced your Go journey the most? You influenced other people's Go journey quite a lot, I feel like. Look at this Red One person wrote a whole blog post and got to talk about a podcast. Just saying what you did was bad. So, some people might put you down, but I'm interested to know who you would put down.
I'm curious to see if we say the same person.
Yeah, for me, it was our coworker, Prashant Varanasi. He had a strong influence both on my Go journey and in general on my career. He's very knowledgeable. He actually, I'm sure there are a couple of talks by him you can find on the internet as well. But on top of that, he was the kindest code reviewer. And so in every code review with him, you just learned a lot about everything you were doing, but also you just learned how to do a review where the person receiving the review felt good about it. And following that, I kind of modeled how I worked with other people after him. So I think he had the strongest influence on me and my, Go journey.
That was really well said. I would also say Prashant is one of the biggest influences on my career. I actually switched teams and departments in the company just to go work with him and Abhinav and the rest of them on all this stuff.
Cool. Well, I hope he listens to this episode.
He lives in San Francisco, so you'll meet him eventually.
Nice. That's where it happens, man. Well, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We hope to host you again soon to talk about more what you're building right now. And not, the contentious library you started in 2018 or whatever. Or maybe actually we need to host you in 2032 to talk about what you're doing in 2025. Right.
Yeah, what contentious stuff are you going to do between now and then?
Just imagine how many people will be laying into me on the internet by then.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been a real pleasure and an eye-opener, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Program exited. Goodbye.